student getting their license, entering the data, putting them in archive, reimbursement. Jennifer's been nice enough to hook us up for the first time ever with a Zoom meeting here so we can answer any questions you've got. She's got a presentation for you and we'll discuss some of the changes that we've had and answer any of the questions you've had involving your data entry in ISBE. So, thank you again, Jennifer, for coming on board. We see Alex there getting his final adjustment there. I'm glad he's technologically advanced. I'm definitely back in the stone
Oh,
age.
can they see my screen?
Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay.
I just exited out to try to turn the volume up in the corner of it.
You know, you're fine.
There you go. Uh-oh, I just took away your screen. All right, is that better?
Yeah, can you see it?
Yeah, we can all see it.
All right. Okay, are you ready for me?
Yep, you're good.
You're good, thank you.
All right. As I stated, I'm Jennifer Jonas. I'm the one, work at the State Board of Education, so I'm the one that you call, when you have any IWAS questions. I put together a handout, and I know if some of you have been at the state conference, this is kind of similar. I have added some new items in here, that have been sent to me, questions asked that, some people might need to know, and some of this may be helpful if you're a new instructor. Some of it may be repetitive, so if you already know it, I apologize. But anyway, at the end of this, I will tell you that if there's anything in here that you've got questions on that I haven't gone over, feel free to ask. Or my email is at the end of this, and you can send me an email, and I will put together like a Q&A to have as well to share on our website, so that way there's a document that you can go to at all times if you have any questions as well. I'm just kind of going to briefly go through some of the information on here, and then if you have questions, if there's time, feel free to ask. I'm going to start off with, I have been moved to a new department within the agency, still do the same job, just moved to a different department. So my phone number has changed. So you'll see my new number there highlighted. So if you can, try to save that number. Just so that way, that'll put you directly to my department. You won't have to kind of go through several different callers to get to me. Starting with remote instruction, all classroom instruction provided through remote learning will count towards the 30-hour requirement. Back when I did this was when all 30 hours could be provided remotely, because that's when students have the option to take, to be able to do remote learning. Even right now, I know it's just if you were quarantined, I believe. I'm checking on this to see if all 30 hours, since we are wanting the in-person learning. As of right now, just consider the 30 hours can be considered remote learning until further notice. So, but I am checking on that. Okay, if your school is not providing remote learning and it's an option this school year and a student is quarantined, you will have to work with the student to make sure they complete their 30 hours of instruction. Again, I suggest allowing them to participate by Zoom or Google Classroom so they don't miss out on instruction or fall behind. That's similar to what we've been doing all along with COVID. I actually had put this in here before they had changed that if you were quarantined, you had to provide remote learning to students. Another thing, I've had several schools ask me about the Eligibility driver's education program, which is a virtual course. That is not an acceptable driver's education course for ISBE at this time. So I wanted to put that out there because, like I said, I've received several questions about that. Behind the wheel instruction, in-person behind the wheel instruction can continue even if the school is providing curriculum through remote learning unless instructed otherwise. Under no circumstances shall there only be one student and one instructor in a car. We are telling people that it's kind of up to your local school district on how they want to handle it. They want to allow 2 or 3 students in the car at this time. Kind of just follow what your your local health department what your numbers are. I can, continue to wear the mask, wipe down the vehicle when you can. And just, again, just similar to what we have been with the, with COVID. But like I said, right now I believe that a lot of school districts should be able to have 2 to 3 kids in the car. Claiming students for reimbursement. Schools may receive reimbursement for 1 fail and 2 passes per student. So if a student fails classroom or lab instruction, be sure to go ahead and submit the failing grade so that the school receives reimbursement for that. I know there were some schools that didn't realize that you did get reimbursed for a fail. In those regards, if the student retakes the instruction, you'll go ahead and pick them up off the student list to enroll them in another class and then submit their passing grade. However, the system will not allow you to enroll them in the same class they failed. So if you have a 2022 fall classroom only and they fail it and you submit their fail, if they retake it and pass again, you cannot put them in that FY 2022 fall classroom only. You'd have to create a new class because otherwise the system won't allow you to enroll them in the same one. Students enrolled in school and taking driver education may be claimed for reimbursement up to the age of 21. If a student doesn't complete the 30 hours of classroom instruction or 6 hours of lab instruction and they are removed or dropped from the class, submit them as a dropped. The only time you will submit a student as a fail is when they actually complete the required hours but don't receive a passing grade. For students 18 and over, any student 18 years or older who takes classroom instruction will need to provide a copy of their transcript as proof of passing classroom instruction when they go to the DMV. Then they won't be allowed to take the driving test there. If students are submitted, classroom only grades do not get submitted to the Secretary of State's office, so that's why a lot of 18-year-olds are turned away, because that grade, the classroom grade, does not submit to Secretary of State's office. Now, that is something we were working on to see if we can get the classroom grades to submit to the Secretary of State, so that way they would not need to provide the transcript. That's still we're still talking about that though, so as of right now, students 18 years and older will still need to take a copy of their transcript if they've not completed lab instruction. Archiving and transferring students. If you have students who no longer attend your school and you know they aren't going to take behind the wheel, you can archive those students. You just go to your student list, check the box next to the student's name and click archive at the bottom of the page, and then you'll fill in the reason you're archiving them. You can, graduating, no longer at school, whatever you want to put there. This will keep their record, but remove them from your student list, so that way you don't have to work around them. And then archived student records can always be reinstated. So if somebody's archived accidentally, we can always reinstate them. If you have recent students who no longer attend your school but have a record started in IWAS and moved to continue driver's education, you can transfer those students out and place them on the transfer list for the other school to pick up. If you have any issues transferring students out, let me know, and I can always help with that as well. And I know, one thing I will suggest is I know time is an issue for a lot of you, but you may want to go through your student list every once in a while and see if there are still students in school, because I found some student lists that have several hundred students on them, and some of them date back to when they took it in like 2002. So those students can be archived. That way you don't have to work around them on your student list. Driver education documentation. If a student completes classroom instruction at a commercial or private driving school or at another public high school, you need to keep a copy of the transcript or certificate that states the student completed classroom instruction elsewhere in their student file. And please be sure to check the box that states they completed classroom instruction at a commercial driving school, out-of-state program, or online adult course when you submit their lab grade. And you will see that box when you enroll them in lab only. That way, when that box is checked, since they didn't take classroom instruction with you, the completion will go on file. I included a link to the driver education student record card, because while we were out, due to COVID, we weren't in the office and we weren't able to get those. So there is a card that you can actually print, and I've given you the link to that, or found, given you instructions on how to find that card to where you could actually print them off, make copies, if we wouldn't be in the office again or be out for some reason. Driver instructor eligibility, this is just telling you that we are doing a rewrite and some things are going to change on how you submit driver's ed instructors. Only driver's ed instructors who are certified will be on a drop-down list to choose from. So please make sure that your Pell is valid and not lapsed. Instructors with a lapsed or invalid Pell would be deactivated, not be allowed to teach driver's education. Also, with the new electronic permit process in place on CyberDrive, an instructor must be approved in IWAS in order to log into CyberDrive and make sure that your superintendent has added you in this system if you're a new instructor. Also, I've been going through the instructor system, and there are a lot of instructors who I believe are now retired or probably no longer with the school or have lapsed Pels. That's something that you may want to mention to the superintendent, so those instructors can be deactivated. Okay, special education, private facilities and alternative schools. Just schools that place students in a special education, private facility or alternative school with the purpose of the student obtaining a driver's license must ensure that the facility has an ISBE certified instructor teaching the driver's education classroom instruction. Most of those don't have lab, but there are different ways that the student can, or that the private school or alternative school can submit information. And usually it's the private school or alternative school that reaches out to me regarding that, but I just wanted to put that in there because I have several questions. Student errors, it is very important for driver's education instructors to double check the student completion information in each class where there's any errors. So if you do submit information, just make sure that there's not, that they don't have an error on file. If it says not on SOS file, it just means that the permit number that was entered in IWAS doesn't match what the Secretary of State has on file. And if you resubmit what you have and it still doesn't go through, you may need to reach out to the student to see if you can get a copy of the permit to double check it. Also, if you get the dupe on SOS file error, that means I will fix that. There's nothing you can do with that. So I usually I do those every morning unless I get really busy. It may be in the afternoon before I get to it. Please make sure to tell students that if they may change any information on if they change any information on their permit, like their permit application before receiving their license, let you know so that you can submit their new permit number in IWAS. A student's completion will not show up the SOS if a student's permit number changed from the original number submitted, even though the record will show as approved in IWAS. And that happens a lot. Students don't realize that adding their full middle name instead of just a middle initial or the spelling, it can change their permit number. And they don't realize that, and that can hold them up. I just provided the link again to the student license inquiry on how they can look up to see if their record has been approved at the Secretary of State's. The next part is driver education student coursework, like student transfers. This is just telling you how to add a transfer student or how to transfer someone out. And last but not least is the driver education appropriate reimbursement information. I was able to finish up and close out the file yesterday, so I did include the new amounts that are going to be for reimbursement this year. If you'll notice, the appropriate amount did go down. There was a decrease in the amount of 2.25 million. And I did put on there the reason why there was a decrease in the approach, and it was due to declining revenues, in this fund, and a lot of that was due to, the COVID pandemic. And unfortunately, the pandemic will cause an estimated decrease of 6 million in revenues, driver's ed revenues through FY '21. And this reduction recommended for FY '22 will be the first fiscal year of a 3-year correction period to address the payment backlog for this fund. So, the next 2 years as well for FY '23 and FY '24, you will see a decrease, in the appro. Hopefully, it will stay at 3.75 million, and won't go any lower than that, but I can't guarantee anything at this point. And then there's just my contact information on there, again, the address, phone number, my email. So if you have any, questions that you want to email me, or anything that you need help with, feel free to contact me either by phone or by email. So, again, I apologize if this was repetitive stuff that you've heard over and over, but, there are a few new things we've had added in there. Also, I know it was brought up, the 5 mental health days that were passed. I actually have an email into our, one of our departments about that as well. As of right now, it looks like it's gonna be a local school district decision on how the district wants to handle a student who takes one of those days while they're in driver's education. Again, if it's only a day or, 2, those hours can more than likely be made up. So that way the student doesn't need to drop from the class. But, again, I do have an email in to double check on that, so. Does anybody have any questions for me?
Any entry error questions? Throw them out there.
And again, if you don't wanna ask them now, that's fine, you can always email me, and, I'm gonna put together a Q&A, for any of these, and then post them on the website, so that way they're there for people to, see if anybody has any questions, so.
I have one question.
Yep, one question, Jeff.
I
Okay.
have, like, all my driving portion in there have all been submitted and approved, but I still have a lot of classroom ones that are submitted but haven't been approved. Is that-
Okay, classroom, the only time an SOS status on iOS is gonna show as approved is when both the passing classroom and a passing lab grade have been submitted.
That makes sense.
So if they're showing as approved, that means that they've got a passing classroom and passing lab grade submitted. If they've only completed classroom, it's only gonna show as submitted.
Okay.
And when it comes to reimbursement, whenever I send out that you wanna make sure it either says submitted or approved, you just wanna make sure, as long as it says submitted, that's fine. The main thing I want people to watch is to make sure it doesn't say like next to classroom or lab doesn't show as enrolled, and the students actually completed it already, and their grade just didn't get submitted to ISBE. So as long as it says submitted next to classroom, that's fine.
Oh, thank you.
Yep.
When does a cost report come out for? Like
The cost report usually is done in the spring, so usually in March, the cost report comes out. But you could see down at the bottom where I did, the reimbursement, you will be able to, right there, you'll be able to see the classroom and lab numbers that were submitted for FY, payable in FY '22, and what the amounts of the classroom and the lab, reimbursement will be. And those are for students, that were submitted for the FY '21 fiscal year, payable FY '22. But the cost report's usually done in, March.
Other question? Remember, you can also reimburse for failing a student. A lot of you may not have been aware of that, but as long as they've stayed through the entire course and have the hours, that reimbursement is part of that same amount of money as well. So don't think you can only turn in the ones who passed, enter the ones who have failed as well. Any other questions? From the source, you're gonna see her via email. Well, Jennifer, thank you again for coming in and helping us out. and answering our questions. We wish you the best of luck and hope things are safe back in the Springfield now for you.